What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I am back with my top 5 fights for the month in the world of mixed martial arts. And obviously, we have June coming up, and I went through a lot of events in June here over the last while. And I'll be honest, I think this might be the month where MMA kicks in to gear in 2025. We've had a mixed bag, I would say, of MMA so far. Some very good. A lot of, filler, a lot of dross, a lot of bad stuff. But I had to cut this down to 5 fights rather than, rather than looking for 5 fights, like searching out ones, good ones I want to find. But there's a lot to choose from, and I'll probably have a lot of honorable mentions at the end again. It's like, I'm gonna the first fight I'm gonna start with. I have to start with it because it's a rematch. You can guess what it is. But I went back and I watched the last fight, and God, I'm so excited. I feel like I could spend the next half an hour talking about just that fight alone. But we'll get to 5 fights here. But I don't know about ye, but let me know in the comment section below. I feel like the last 18 months we've been like, we've had some great knockouts and great submissions and great events, but I feel like the number of great fights has really been lacking. Like when you think about it, I think of Umar versus Merab. I think of Paul Hughes versus Usman. And, at the very, very top level, let's say, those are the two that kind of come to mind for me. Like I don't think there was a great fight in 2024. So far, as I said, we've had the 2 of them in 2025, but I think we're due some great fights. I really, really do think we're due some great fights. We're due some great events. We're due some blockbuster events. And I also, with my second fight, I feel like life is going to be put back into a couple of divisions. I said it at the turn of the year, 2024, not the greatest year for MMA. I said at the turn of the year, 2025 is going to be really, really, really good. And so far, okay, that hasn't delivered. I think that's fair to say. I think most people would agree. Now, there has been some good stuff, and there hasn't been a whole lot of bad stuff. But, we want great stuff. We want Aspinall versus Jones. We want the fights I'm about to talk about here. And we just haven't really got him yet, have we? But as I said, we're getting them. So let's get into it. And I'm going to start with Merab versus O'Malley too. Now, some people might think, Shawnee, this is a fight and a rematch that maybe a lot of people didn't want to see. I saw when it was announced, people were like, "Oh, why did they make this? O'Malley should have had another fight." And there was a lot of chat about it, and I would say most of it negative. And I get that. I really, really do get that. But I'm going to do something here that I don't really do that often. And I'm gonna consult the stats for a second. Then I'll talk about the last fight, and we'll talk about why I'm looking forward to this fight so much. Right, so let's consult the stats here for a second. Right, the most, I suppose, agricultural of stats is this. So the first 2 rounds of the fight, all 3 judges gave to Merab Dvalishvili, right? Grand. The last 3 rounds, 2 of the 3 judges gave 2 of the 3 rounds to Sean O'Malley. So if you think about that, right, we talk about Merab as this, crazy cardio monster, a guy who, you can't stop him coming forward, you can't stop his takedowns, you can't stop his grappling, you can't stop him dominating you. The longer he goes, the worse it gets for you. All 3 judges had the 5th round for O'Malley. 2 of the 3 judges had the 3rd round for O'Malley. So there's a little bit of food for thought there. Now that, when I say that, right, that is a purely stat-based, fact-based sentiment, right? We'll talk about in a second whether the fight actually, whether the fight deems that to be correct, maybe, or whether the fight was just close and looked that way. But let's have a look at the stats. All right, so we go to the UFC stats page, UFCstats.com. And I think if I was to ask a lot of people out there who haven't maybe rewatched the fight since it happened or a couple of weeks after or whatever, and, to describe it, I think a lot of people would say, Merab kind of took him down loads. Merab dominated him on top, load of control time, and that was that. But that wasn't necessarily the case in this fight. Like, in 2 of the rounds, Merab had a lot of control time. The second and the fourth, which we spoke about, those were 2 of the rounds, obviously, that he won on the judges. He had over 3 minutes in both of those. But in the other rounds, in the first round, he had 1 minute 20. And if you go back and watch that round, a good portion of that is kind of like on the knees, controlling there. He had 52 seconds in the third. Again, something pretty similar. And he had 1 minute and 2 seconds in the fifth, which isn't a whole lot, right? If you look at the takedown stats, Merab got 2 in the first, 1 in the second, 0 in the third, 1 in the fourth, and 2 in the fifth round. So that's a total of 6 takedowns, 6 out of 15. 0 from 5 in the third round. So 6 out of 15 of Merab going for takedowns. That is a stat you would almost be looking at Merab in like the first half of a round. Or, maybe the first round. And it gets more and more and more. Like, Merab's known for putting on the pace, and even if he's not taking you down, to try to take you down over and over and over. And Merab did not do that in that fight. I literally just went back and watched it half an hour ago. He didn't do it in that fight. Now, you could argue as well that the takedowns did come a little bit easier for Merab in that fight, but I think is what's interesting to me, and what the stats don't say here, it's actually more beneficial to O'Malley, I would think. So that 120 in the first round, 120 of control time from Merab, O'Malley actually got taken down, and a lot of that 120 was actually O'Malley getting into position, getting back up, and getting to his feet, which is like the exact opposite almost of what Merab wants in a fight. Like, Merab likes to waste. Waste is the wrong word, but it's the right word. He wastes a whole lot of time grappling, to try and take you down, re-entering, chain wrestling over and over. That's he's getting. He's brilliant at it. But that wasn't the case in this fight. And like, the slower pace almost helped O'Malley not get dominated. Now, the problem with it is he didn't really do much himself. So they're in your stats call for this, and let's talk about why I'm excited about it. So the reason I'm excited about it is I think it could be a very, very different fight this time, and that's not usual. I think in fights that happen relatively quickly. When did this happen? This happened. Does it say it? It doesn't say it. I'll find UFC 306 last year. Anyway, so I think that the big difference, why I'm looking forward to this fight, which is the point of this show and the point of all these fights here, I'm looking forward to this fight because I actually think the UFC Not Yet card was one of those ones where the event was amazing, the night was amazing, how they did it was amazing, but the fights were, first of all, the fights weren't amazing. That's fine. There's no problem with that. But my thing is, I don't think people, and a lot of people, almost all the people on that card, actually fought up to their ability, especially the main event. I just don't think it was the case. I think a lot of people either got, not necessarily got caught up in the bright lights, and, the lights were kind of dim if you listen to Sean O'Malley's team, but it was so odd, and I think, these people are in a state of delirium or something. Now, you might say that's an excuse, but who's an excuse for? Like, I don't think Merab fought amazingly in that fight either. I certainly don't think O'Malley did. I think both of them can fight a lot better. Now, as I said, it was a good fight. I watched it back. It was a good fight. But I really do think both of them could fight better. And when I say this fight could go a lot differently a minute ago, I don't mean necessarily O'Malley winning. Those, 6 takedowns? I could see that turn into 36 takedowns for Merab. I think Merab in these last few fights has just not started strong enough. And if he does start strong and keep it going, which we know he can, he could maraud not just Sean O'Malley, but a lot of people in that division. And then the other side of it for O'Malley, like he did a great job for the most part in that fight. Now, apart from the two big instances of not getting held down, of when he did get taken down, getting straight back up. And if that is the case, you have to be more confident on the feet. And there's ways and means of doing it. Like sometimes he just overthrew his shots and got taken down again. You can't do that. What you have to do is control the pace, push the pace, keep O'Malley going. You're going to have unbelievable cardio to keep that going for 5 rounds. And I think O'Malley can do that. Now, I'm not saying I think he can win, but I think he can do that. He can control the pace. He can push a guy like Merab back. He can put him in a place where Merab is struggling to take him down. And if he does that, and if he also is able to get back up when he does get taken down, that fight is really there for O'Malley to win. It really, really is. But as I said again, Merab took him down so easily in the first fight. What's to say he won't do it more easily this one? So we'll see on that. But it's such a great fight. It's again not an amazing fight the first time, a good fight the first time. But I really think this one is going to be different, whichever way it goes. You know, it's on in New Jersey in front of a normal crowd in a normal arena. I can't wait. Another fight that's on that arena is my second fight. And it's Julianna Pena against Kayla Harrison. And I mentioned earlier about a fight being important for a division, for the sport, for the fight, for the female side of the fight game to kind of get back up and running. And this really is it. Like, I'm a big advocate for women's MMA. There's some great fighters out there that have been down through the years. But over the last year, it's been really, really, really poor. And I mean, the fights, the amount of fights happening, the amount of champions fighting, the amount of high-level fights, it just hasn't been there. The excitement for it, and you can say that about the men's side of it too, absolutely. But the women's side, I think, has fared really, really badly over the last while. But there's so many good fights in the horizon and so much action on the horizon that I think this might be the kickstart of it. So this fight itself between Pena and Harrison, we'll get to that in a second. But what is this fight? This is a fight between Pena, who likes to talk a lot. You know, some people hate her, and maybe some people like her. I don't really have an opinion on her, to be honest. But she seems to be the heel. I think that would be fair. I think she seems to be a mostly hated character in the MMA world. And you have Kayla Harrison, who is, you know, the great hope of American MMA or judo or whatever it might be. She's the next Ronda Rousey from her birth as an MMA fighter. She was the Bo Nickel of her time. Let's put it that way. It was expected of her to be the UFC champion. And this is our opportunity. And that makes for an intriguing fight itself. As I said, we'll talk about the fight in a second. But what's also intriguing is that the greatest of all time, Amanda Nunes, is more than likely going to be sitting cage side. She has been sitting cage side for many fights recently. She's basically said she's coming back. If she's coming back, she's surely going to fight the winner. She fought Pena twice. They're 1-1. That's written itself. Harrison, is her ex-teammate. They kind of, we won't fight before, and now they're absolutely fighting if they're made together. So you have this fight, but you already have a built-in storyline for the next one. Surely they'll bring Nunes in. Surely they'll stare him off, and we'll get that fight going. We'll get a date in the press conference afterwards. That's the type of thing we should be getting. So that's brilliant. That is not just a kickstart for the Saturday night, and this is on June 7th. That's a kickstart for the next 6 months to a year in women's MMA. So it's brilliant. And on the fight itself, I think this is a very, very interesting fight, and I think for two reasons. I think Pena is probably the most underrated fighter in women's MMA at the moment. Now, I've underrated her myself. I'll be honest, I don't think she is amazing as a fighter. I feel like I've given Pena an awful hard time here. I don't dislike her in any way. I'm just giving an honest opinion here. But she gets results. She beat Amanda Nunes. She beat the greatest of all time. The biggest shock in the history of the UFC. There's no doubt about that. Other people have argued other things, but they're wrong. No one's ever beaten the GOAT when they were the GOAT in the sport, and she did it. She lost the title, got it back. Amazing. No one thought she'd do that. So you can't underestimate her. And then from Kayla Harrison, I think she's probably a tad overrated because she came over from the judo. She's this mega athlete. She was in the PFL. She had a few poor performances. She lost to Pacheco, who hasn't done amazingly since. She's done all right. She's won a couple of million and stuff, but she's lost the fight since. She came into the UFC, looked okay, hasn't looked amazing, and she's gone in here against Pena. So like, where does that pendulum lie? Is it the underrated or the overrated going to win? Now we'll give our picks at the time and everything, I suppose. But I'll give my pick right now. I'd be surprised if Harrison didn't win, to be honest. But again, whatever the outcome here, the UFC are in business. And the one wish I would have for this is they'd realize they're in business and actually promote it. And let's hear an awful lot about it. I'm recording this here on the beautiful 27th of May, my birthday. So we're 11 days out or whatever it is from it. Let's get promoting this. This should be talked about as this is the tender for women's MMA in 2025. Here we go. Amanda Nunes should be involved in everything this week. She should be hanging around all of that in the next 2 weeks. Let's go. So there you go. They're my two fights from UFC 316. I have another UFC fight as my fifth fight. My next fight is going to be from PFL, and it's on June 12th, PFL 5. There's a lot of PFL fights I could have taken. I'm actually going to do another PFL show next week, I think. So we'll keep all the rest of them for that. But the one I wanted to concentrate on, I think it's by far the best fight of this round of PFL fights. And it's Jason Jackson versus Tad Jean. It's in Nashville on June 12th at PFL 5, the semifinals. And this is an absolute belter of a fight. People probably know Jason Jackson a good bit at this stage. The former Bellator champion. Trains out of the famous Henry Hooft stable in Florida. Went in there with Amasov a couple of years ago and gave him probably the fight he never expected. Gave a lot of people probably the shock of the year in 2023. Ended up losing last time out to Ramzan Kuramagomedov. Although came back late in that fight and looked good. It wasn't last time, it was 2 fights ago. Beat Koreshkov, obviously, in the tournament here and looked really good doing it. Choked him out in the second round. And you're thinking, like, he should be the favourite. This guy is, with Kuramagomedov and Musayev not in the tournament, this guy is going to, not waltz through it, but he's going to win. And then you see Tad Jean going in there against Mohamed Berkamov, who's himself is a very, very good fighter and beating some good guys. And he just murks him in a round, knocks him out. Looked absolutely amazing doing it. His fifth knockout in 9 fights. He's only 26 years of age, young, hungry, lion, fighting out of Florida as well. And this guy looks every bit as legit as anyone you'd see, but not in the controlled, technical Jason Jackson type of way or Amasov type of way or even Kuramagomedov or Musayev. This guy is, I don't know what you describe him as, an Edson Barboza, Conor McGregor, a Junior Dos Santos type of fighter who are good technical fighters, but they're athletic phenoms and beasts and lads who just, you almost expect it out of them. And it's, I think Edson Barboza is always the greatest example. You look at a guy like that and you're like, how is this guy not the champion of the world? And it's almost like every time he doesn't beat the very, very best, you're thinking, it's just a failure type of thing. Which is very tough on the individual fighters. But you can't, like, what's it been, folks? Says he looks good getting off the bus. That Gene is definitely one of them. He looks good getting back on the bus as well because he's usually a dub in the end Not usually, always has a dub in the hand. This guy is brilliant. If you haven't seen him, go back and watch that Berkhamah fight. I'd be very interested to see the odds of this fight. I would be very, very interested to see how a lot of people breaking this down, how a lot of people are picking in this fight, because I'll be honest, I don't really know myself. Jason Jackson, I think a lot of people probably know if they've listened to this show and over in Severe Main stuff. Jason Jackson is one of my favorite fighters to watch. I just love his game, and I respect the way he goes about MMA as well. And you know, I'd normally pick him for every fight because I respect his game that much. But this one, I might pick him, but I might not. That's how much respect I have for Tajin. This guy is a beast of a fighter. And you know, if you're not maybe a regular PFL viewer or whatever, or maybe just tune in for the odd fight, this is the guy to tune in for. This is your Paul Hughes. This is your Usman or Magomedov. This is your AJ McKee. This is your outlier. This is your outlier fight. This is top level fight. If this was in the UFC, this could be a title fight, or this could be, you know, your Ian Gary versus Pratchez type of fight. That's the level this we're talking about. Just because they're not in the UFC doesn't mean they're not great fighters. That's the level of this fight. An unbelievable fight, and I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it. A great fight. The next fight I want to talk about is 2 days after. It's at KSW 107, which goes down over in Gdansk in Poland. And it's the main event between the longest reigning KSW champion ever, isn't it? Phil de Vries, 26-6, against Arda Wojciech, who is only 6-0. But this guy is a beast. You know, a few people asked me over the last while, who's the heavyweight prospect in the world we should be looking at? There's none. And I've kept saying Wojciech. Wrzosek. He's 6-0. He has 4 knockouts and 1 submission. Beat Matthias Scheffel. Last amount 25 seconds round 1. That's the Matthias Scheffel that was in the PFL tournament. That's the Matthias Scheffel that that's a really, really good fighter. That's the Matthias Scheffel that's been in there with the likes of, you know, Ante Delia, Stocic. That's the Scheffel who beat Bruno Capelloza. Same guy. And he beat him in 25 seconds. That's how good he is. He beat Artur Spilka as well. This guy is as legit as they come. He came over from Glory. Really good kickboxing background. 32 years of age, so only a pup as a heavyweight. And he's gone in there, obviously, against Phil de Vries, who at 26-6 is probably the best active heavyweight in the world. You know, Francis, no, not active. Tom, not active. John Jones, not active. Who else? It's Phil de Vries. And you have to give the man his credit. You know, we mentioned Stocic earlier, beat him last time. I'll just ring off some of these names. Augustus Sakai, Simon Bior, Todd Duffy, Ricardo Preissel, Stocic again, Thomas Narcoon, Michael Keita, Luis Enriquez, Thomas Narcoon again, Karl Bedorf, etc. He's beaten some great guys. Some really good guys over the last while, and is on an unbelievable streak. And like, he can do it all. He can knock you out in the feet, but he can take you down and make it a misery on you. He's 14 wins by submission, 7 knockouts, and only 5 decisions. Like, for a guy who puts a lot on you, that's a pretty good record. But this is the type of fight. It could be another routine Phil de Vries title fight, but it could also be the one where Phil de Vries gets beat. And I'll be honest, I think it is the one where Phil de Vries gets beat. I think Wrzosek is going to beat him. Probably ruin his name. Arkadiusz Wrzosek, but I love him. We'll all have to learn his name when it goes, because this guy is a beast, a real beast. And the speed with his punches, the power in his punches, de Vries is going to be going across the cage trying to take this guy down, but he's good footwork, he's fast, he has it all, and de Vries is going to be in for a real tough one in that one. So that is my 4th fight. And my 5th fight and final fight is Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria, June 28th, UFC 317. Now, again, I've left out a lot of fights. I'll give a couple of honourable mentions here in a second, but oh Lord, this is this is a fight. I did a podcast last week, my mid-year betting picks, and I gave at -345 Topuria, right? So that wouldn't suggest that I'm that excited about this fight. That I would suggest I think I know who's going to win. But I've never been too bothered about that. I was speaking to someone before about this sort of thing, and they're like, oh, you know, it's going to be one-sided. We know who's going to win. I want to see it. You know, you tell me Topuria is going to win. Yeah, grand, no problem. I want to see that. You tell me Oliveira is going to win. Grand, no problem. I want to see that. I want to see how he does it. I want to see how well he does it. And when you give me a guy like Ilia Topuria or Demetrius Johnson or Islam Makhachev or John Jones or Alexander Volkanovski, who are vicious and cocky and tenacious, but ultimately unbelievably skilled, sign me up 10 times out of 10. Like, we complain all the time about the slop and the new fighters, and there isn't enough good top level stuff. Ilia Topuria is the top of the top, right? And so is Charles Oliveira. Like, Charles Oliveira, do you know what I love about Charles Oliveira? He found a way to win. And sometimes, like, what we look at, like, your stereotypical great fighter is Ilia Topuria. He is skilled everywhere. He never really struggles anymore. No one's really taking him down that much. No one's really hitting him that much, unless your name is Jai Herbert. No one's really hurting him. No one's really out tacticking him or out techniquing him. You know, that's your stereotypical great fighter. But sometimes, and I love that, that's my favorite type of fighter, if I'm being honest. But you also have to respect the guys who throw flying kicks in the hope that you'll take them down so they'll catch you in a triangle. You have to respect the guys that go all out and throw big power shots to try to knock you out because they know they have no problem fighting on the ground. Guys that find a way to win. Not find a way to win is the wrong phrase there. They build a way to win. They discover a way to win. And they go out and they do it. You know, architects, maybe we should call them. Whereas, you know, I don't know what Topuria is. Topuria might be, what would Topuria be? No, Oliveira is the builder, Topuria is the architect. Let's put it that way. And, you know, maybe Topuria designed a lovely house, but maybe Oliveira will be able to knock it down. And we'll see on that. But the reason I love this fight is because I expect Ilia Topuria to go out and not get taken down by Oliveira, to beat him technically on the feet, to not get caught by big shots, to not get submitted, to not get dominated, as I said, with the wrestling or anything like that. That's what I expect. But Charles Oliveira will expect to pull that apart. That's what he goes into these fights normally doing. Right? This is how I get you to where I want to get you to. And against a guy like Topuria, that's easier said than done because he's so good. But at the same time, there's so many things that he's good at. There's so many little tricks that Oliveira might be able to use to get there. That to me is intriguing. And even if none of that happens, we'll get to see one of the greats just at it again. So I can't wait for that fight. I cannot wait for that fight. A couple of honorable mentions. So we have our top 5, and I'll throw them out to you again. Cage Warriors. They have a great fight on the 28th. They have a couple of title fights throughout the month, but Ewan Davis versus James Power. Love this fight. I've been a big admirer of James Power for a long while. Ewan Davis as well, but he's maybe younger in the game, 6-0 versus 8-1. They're fighting for the interim lightweight title. It's a great fight, that one. The main event, Gittins and Giordano. Again, a very, very good fight there as well. Some of the other PFL fights. What about Rafael Sarts versus Sergio Pettis on the 27th? That's a great fight. I love Rasta and Jeffrey. Silveira and Edwards as well is a very good fight on that night. So there's some good stuff there. The other PFL night then, you have Hadley against Alves. You know, after the first night, that's amazing. You know, Dara Kelly's on his way back as well. Magomedov against Kamadov, 16-0 undefeated. It's a great fight, that is. And you know, you've Storley Kikuri after the first one, Braga Pineda, you know, Jeremy Kennedy against Barracks. Again, some really, really good stuff there. You know, at UFC 317 as well, we've Pantoja against Kaikar France. I didn't even mention a UFC title fight. That's just fantastic. Money Moicano against Dariush. Rival against Cape on that fight as well. Just some brilliant, brilliant stuff altogether. So that is it. That's all to look forward to in the month of June. Well, there's plenty more as well, but those are the top 5. O'Malley, Merab, Harrison, Pena, Jean versus Jackson, De Vries versus Wrzosek, and Oliveira versus Topuria. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com. Those were your 5 fights for June. I'll see you all next time.